The world had already begun to notice something strange. The stars in the night sky were no longer twinkling. Instead, they seemed to dim, one by one, as if someone had turned off the cosmic lights. Scientists scrambled to make sense of it, but no one could explain the phenomenon. It wasn't just the stars. Earth itself felt different. The weather had become erratic, storms hitting places that had never seen rain before. Temperatures dropped in some places, while others burned under the scorching sun. People were scared. They had no idea what was happening. But Alex, a former astronaut turned scientist, was beginning to connect the dots. Alex sat in his small lab in the heart of the city, staring at a set of old, dusty books that had been buried in his personal collection for years. They were filled with ancient legends, stories of protectors, and strange celestial events that seemed to match the signs he was witnessing now. The stories spoke of a guardian, an ancient being that had once protected Earth from a force greater than anything the world had ever known. According to the legends, the guardian had disappeared, leaving behind only whispers and ruins. But the signs were clear to Alex. The guardian was returning, and the world wasn't ready. It started with the mysterious blackout in the sky. A strange signal, barely detectable, was traced to the source, deep within the Amazon rainforest. The moment Alex heard this, he knew what he had to do. He packed his bags and gathered a small team of experts: Maria, a linguist who had studied ancient cultures; Aishan, a geologist with a sharp mind for patterns; and Kaz, a former soldier who had seen enough battles to know when something wasn't right. They boarded a plane to the Amazon, where they would search for answers that could change the fate of Earth. The jungle was thick, the air heavy with humidity, and the sounds of wildlife echoed through the trees. But there was something more, something that didn't belong. As they pushed deeper into the forest, they found an ancient temple hidden from the world for centuries. Its stone walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the light. Maria was the first to recognize them. "These are the markings of an ancient civilization," she said, running her fingers over the carvings. "But these symbols, they're different from anything I've ever seen." They entered the temple cautiously, the air inside cool and still. The walls were covered in murals that depicted strange celestial events: stars falling from the sky, massive storms ravaging the land, and a great figure standing against an even greater darkness. In the center of the temple, an enormous stone statue stood, towering over them. It was a figure of a being unlike any human they had ever seen, with glowing eyes and a cloak of shimmering energy. Kaz, who was always the skeptic, stepped forward and said, "This looks like a fairy tale, a myth, but it feels real." Alex's heart raced as he stared at the statue. He had read the legends, but to stand before something so ancient, so powerful, was overwhelming. He felt a strange connection to the figure, like something deep within him was calling out to it. He turned to Aishan. "Do you feel that?" he asked. Ishan nodded, his face pale. "It's like the whole place is alive. And it's not just the energy in the air. It's something else, something old." Maria stepped closer to the statue, carefully examining the markings on its base. She spoke softly. "The guardian was said to have been sealed away, hidden by those who feared its power. But it also says that when the stars begin to darken, it will awaken. That time is now." As Alex processed her words, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The temple seemed to come alive, its ancient stones groaning and shifting. Kaz grabbed his weapon instinctively, but Alex motioned for him to lower it. "Stay calm," Alex said. "This is what we've been waiting for." The tremor stopped as suddenly as it had begun, but something had changed. The air around them buzzed with energy. In the distance, they could hear a low hum, like a vibration deep within the earth itself. Alex's pulse quickened as he realized the guardian was awakening. It was real. They quickly made their way back to the temple's central chamber, where a series of strange panels covered the floor. Each one was etched with symbols that matched the ones on the walls. Ishan, with his knowledge of geology, studied the panels carefully. "These aren't just carvings," he said. "There's some sort of ancient mechanism, a way to channel energy. But where is it coming from?" Before anyone could answer, a bright light erupted from the center of the room, blinding them. It felt as if the very earth was shaking beneath their feet, and the sound of cracking stone echoed through the chamber. The glowing statue seemed to pulse, as if it was alive, and then, with a violent jolt, the ground beneath them gave way. They fell into darkness. When Alex awoke, he was no longer in the temple. The world around him had changed. The jungle was gone. He was standing in a vast, empty space, surrounded by swirling clouds of energy. In the center of it all stood the Guardian. Its eyes glowed with ancient power, and its form was a mixture of energy and matter, like it was part of the universe itself. Its presence was overwhelming, yet strangely comforting. The Guardian spoke without moving its lips, the voice echoing directly in Alex's mind. "You have awakened me, human, but you are not ready for what comes next." Alex's heart raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. He had read the legends, but nothing could have prepared him for this. What is happening? Why is the world changing? The Guardian's voice was filled with ancient wisdom. "The stars darkened because the time has come for Earth to face its greatest threat. But this world has always had a protector, and that protector is now here. I am the Guardian. I was created to protect this world from those who seek to destroy it. But I can only do so much. The world must rise to meet the darkness that is coming." Alex struggled to understand. "The darkness? What do you mean? Who is coming?" The Guardian's gaze shifted toward the horizon, where a faint shadow loomed in the distance. "A great enemy, older than even I, has awoken from the depths of space. They have come to claim Earth for themselves. But this time, they will not succeed. Not with me here." Alex felt a rush of emotion flood through him. He had always believed in science, in facts, in logic. But standing before the Guardian, he knew that the legends were real. The stories were true, and the fate of Earth was now in the hands of this ancient protector. Before Alex could speak again, the world around them began to shift. The clouds swirled faster, and the air crackled with energy. "We must prepare," the Guardian said. "The battle for Earth is about to begin." As the Guardian's words echoed in his mind, Alex realized that everything was about to change. The awakening of the Guardian was just the beginning. The world would never be the same, and now it was up to humanity to decide whether they would rise to meet the challenge or fall to the darkness. The stakes had never been higher. The world was on the edge of chaos. As the days passed, the strange events that had begun with the dimming of the stars continued to escalate. The night skies were dark, but not in the peaceful way they once were. The stars didn't twinkle anymore. They were absent, like someone had ripped the light from the cosmos. Scientists, politicians, and ordinary people alike were grasping for explanations, but there was none to be found. No one knew why the stars had gone out. It felt like a warning, but from who? Alex, still shaken from his last encounter in the temple, couldn't shake the feeling that the world was headed toward something far worse. His discovery of the ancient temple in the heart of the Amazon was only the beginning. It had been only days since he and his team had uncovered the secrets hidden within the old stone walls, but now the reality of their situation was setting in. The Guardian, the protector of Earth, a being not of this time, but of ancient origin, was awakening. But awakening from what? And to what? Sitting in his makeshift lab in a small rented apartment, Alex pored over the research again, trying to connect the dots. He had seen the ancient murals, the strange symbols, and the chilling prophecy etched into the stone. When the stars darken, the Guardian will rise. Those words had been there, in black and white, as if they were waiting for someone to read them. Alex had read them. But what did it mean? And why had the Guardian been hidden for so long? Maria, his colleague and an expert in ancient languages, had stayed behind in the Amazon to investigate the rest of the site. But Alex couldn't wait. He felt a pull, an unexplainable urge to go back, to find the answers. He couldn't explain it, but the feeling gnawed at him. Something was coming. Something far beyond the ancient civilizations of Earth, and it was linked to the Guardian. Kaz, his former soldier friend who had been dragged into this journey out of his own sense of duty, walked into the apartment, his face grim. "Alex, you need to see this." Alex stood up immediately, walking over to the small screen on the table. Kaz handed him a tablet, and Alex's heart sank as he saw the footage. It was a live feed from a satellite, and it showed something he couldn't believe. The Earth's atmosphere was being affected in ways that defied logic. There were ripples, distortions, as if something massive was breaking through. The clouds themselves were swirling, moving like something had shaken the air itself. "What the hell is that?" Alex murmured, his mind racing. Kaz frowned. "Whatever it is, it's not natural. And it's getting worse." Alex's fingers trembled as he zoomed in on the footage. The distortion was spreading, expanding across the globe. It wasn't just a natural event. It was intentional. Someone, or something, was manipulating the very fabric of Earth's atmosphere. "We need to find Maria," Alex said urgently. "She's in the Amazon. She might know something about this." Kaz nodded, already pulling out his phone to make the call. As the line rang, Alex couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. The Guardian was meant to be Earth's protector, but the world was falling apart in ways they hadn't anticipated. And the enemy, the one from the stars, was coming. The Guardian wasn't just a protector. It was the only thing standing between humanity and a fate they couldn't escape. Back in the Amazon, Maria had uncovered more than she had bargained for. The temple, though mysterious, had more layers than Alex and his team had initially realized. The structure was not just an ancient ruin. It was a highly advanced site, designed to hold something, or someone, in place. The deeper she delved into the complex system of traps and barriers within the temple, the more she realized that the Guardian's awakening wasn't just part of a prophecy. It was a warning, a last-ditch effort to save Earth from the coming darkness. She had been tracing the energy patterns through the ancient walls when she stumbled upon a hidden chamber, one that had been sealed for centuries. Inside, an altar sat in the center of the room, and in front of it was a crystal that pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly glow. As she approached it, the air seemed to thicken. The energy felt familiar, like the same force that had erupted when Alex and the team had activated the temple's mechanisms days ago. It was powerful, but there was something dangerous about it. Maria reached out cautiously, her fingers grazing the surface of the crystal. The moment she touched it, the ground beneath her shook violently. The crystal flared to life, lighting the room with an intense blue glow. In a flash, a vision overcame her. It wasn't just a dream or a hallucination. It was a vision of Earth, under attack by a force unlike anything she had ever seen. A shadowy army, with ships that blotted out the stars. The creatures, if you could call them that, moved like shadows, blending into the darkness of space. And behind them, a massive figure, made of pure energy, loomed in the distance. The vision shifted. Now she saw the Guardian, not as a figure of stone, but in its true form, glowing with light and power. It stood against the shadow army, holding its ground, but it was weakening. The enemy was too strong. And then a final image appeared, a large crystalline structure deep within the Earth. The same crystal Maria had just touched. The source of the Guardian's power, the key to saving the Earth. She stumbled back, breathless, as the vision faded. Maria knew what she had seen wasn't a coincidence. The crystal was the key, and it had to be activated before the enemy arrived. But how? And where? She didn't have much time. The enemy was closer than she realized, and the Guardian, though powerful, needed more than just the ability to fight. Maria immediately contacted Alex. "Alex, I found something," she said, her voice urgent. "The Guardian's power comes from a crystal deep inside the Earth. But it's not just any crystal. It's part of a larger network. If we can activate it, the Guardian can reach its full potential. But we need to do it before the enemy arrives." Alex's voice crackled through the phone, his voice strained with tension. "We're on our way. Stay put." Back at the temple, the situation had escalated. The vibrations in the air were now impossible to ignore. The Guardian was awakening. But it wasn't alone. Far beyond the clouds, a dark fleet was descending. Ships that blocked out the stars. Creatures that moved in the shadows, hunting. They weren't here just for Earth. They were here for the Guardian. The first ship breached Earth's atmosphere, its engines burning with the fire of the stars. The enemy had arrived. Alex, Kaz, and Maria, together with the Guardian, were all that stood between Earth and total annihilation. The battle was about to begin. The air was thick with tension as the world watched, helpless and uncertain. The first alien ship had breached the Earth's atmosphere, and it was just the beginning. What had once seemed like strange, unexplainable phenomena, the darkened stars, the storms, the shifting weather, now felt like a prophecy unfolding before their eyes. Something ancient had awoken, and with it, a force far greater than anything humanity had ever encountered. The Guardian, who had been hidden from the world for centuries, was no longer just a myth. It was real, and the battle to protect Earth had begun. Alex stood in the small control room of their temporary base, looking out at the massive screens that displayed real-time footage from every corner of the planet. The skies above Earth were no longer clear. They were filled with flashes of light and the massive silhouettes of alien ships descending from the heavens. It was as if the stars themselves were being consumed by the darkness. The enemy had arrived. "Alex, I think it's time," Kaz said from the corner of the room, his voice tense. The soldier had been keeping watch on the alien fleet, scanning their movements. "They're coordinating. It's not just one ship. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of them, and they're moving quickly." Alex nodded, his mind racing. "I know. We need to figure out how to fight back, and fast." But the truth was, they didn't have much of a plan. The Guardian was still not fully awakened, its true power locked behind layers of mystery and ancient technology. Maria's discovery in the Amazon, the crystal that could unlock the Guardian's potential, was their only hope. But getting to that crystal in time, before the enemy attacked with full force, was a race against the clock. "Maria's still in the Amazon," Alex continued, speaking mostly to himself. "She's our best shot at figuring this out. If she can get that crystal to the Guardian, it might be able to harness the power it needs." Kaz turned to him, his expression grim. "We don't have much time. The enemy is already making moves." Alex's eyes narrowed as he turned back to the screens. The alien ships were now grouping in formation, their engines glowing with an eerie light. A wave of dread washed over him. The truth was, humanity had never faced an enemy like this. And the Guardian, though powerful, wasn't invincible. They had to be ready for whatever came next. Deep in the heart of the Amazon, Maria was racing against time. The jungle was alive with the sounds of nature, but there was an unnatural edge to the air. The crystal in the hidden chamber had been a beacon of energy, pulsing with light. But as soon as Maria had touched it, she knew it wasn't just a simple artifact. It was connected to the Guardian, to the ancient protector of Earth. And now, that connection was about to be tested in ways she couldn't fully understand. Her team had set up camp near the ruins, but even they were starting to feel the shift in the atmosphere. The air was thicker than ever, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble with every passing moment. The world, it seemed, was preparing for something catastrophic. Maria approached the crystal carefully, knowing that it was both a key and a weapon. She had no idea how to use it, but she had no choice but to try. The energy pulsing from the crystal was overwhelming. She could feel it coursing through her fingertips, flooding her with an ancient primal power. It felt like the earth itself was calling out to her. She had to act now. But as she moved to activate the crystal, she was interrupted. The ground shook violently beneath her, knocking her off balance. She stumbled but caught herself. Something was wrong. A voice, deep and resonant, filled the air around her. "You are too late." Maria's heart skipped a beat as she looked up. From the shadows of the jungle, figures began to emerge, tall, dark, and indistinct. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their movements were fluid, almost predatory. "Who are you?" Maria demanded, her voice shaking. "We are the inheritors," one of the figures said, stepping forward. It spoke in a language that was foreign to her, but Maria understood. It was as if the words were directly implanted in her mind. "You should never have awakened the Guardian." Maria's hand instinctively went to the weapon at her side, but she quickly realized it wouldn't help. These creatures weren't from Earth. They were something far more ancient, and they were here for the Guardian, for Earth itself. "Why are you here?" Maria demanded again, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. The inheritor smiled, though it was a cold, empty expression. "We have come to claim what is ours." The Guardian was a tool created long ago, a weapon to defend this planet from the true inheritors of the stars. Now, the time has come to take what we have been denied. The words hit Maria like a slap. The enemy wasn't just here to conquer Earth. They were here for something far deeper. They had been denied control of the planet, and now they intended to take it by force. "You will not succeed," Maria said, trying to steady her breath. The crystal in her hands pulsed again, and for a moment, she could feel the Guardian's power surging beneath her fingers. It was ready, but she had no idea how to unleash it. The inheritor's smile grew wider. "We have already won. The Guardian cannot stand against us." Suddenly, the world around Maria exploded into motion. The crystal flared with blinding light, and a blast of energy erupted from it, sending the inheritors flying backward. The jungle trembled with the force of it, trees collapsing, the earth cracking open. But Maria didn't have time to think. She had to move. The Guardian was awakening. The ancient protector of Earth had heard the call. Back at the makeshift command center, Alex and Kaz were watching as the first waves of alien ships began their descent. The enemy was closing in on every major city, targeting population centers with terrifying precision. Alex's pulse raced as he checked the satellite data again. The Guardian, though awake, was not yet fully connected to the power it needed. It was still in the process of awakening. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. "Alex, look at this," Kaz said, his voice strained. He turned the tablet toward Alex. On the screen, the enemy ships were converging on the Amazon, where Maria and the crystal were. "No," Alex muttered under his breath. "We need to get to her. Now." But it was already too late. The enemy had arrived. The world was under attack. The first battle between Earth and the invaders had begun. The Guardian was awakening, but the fight was far from over. As alien ships descended upon the Amazon, Alex and his team had only one chance to stop the invasion. The crystal was the key, and the Guardian's power was their only hope. The fate of the world rested in the hands of those who had awakened the ancient protector. In the skies above, the battle for Earth was about to reach its breaking point. The Guardian had risen, but would it be enough to save them all? The war for humanity's survival had only just begun. Across the Amazon, the air crackled with energy as the Guardian fully awakened. The once quiet jungle was now a battleground, with the earth trembling under the weight of the ancient protector's power. In the distance, the enemy ships, massive and foreboding, loomed, casting long shadows across the sky. Their weapons charged, ready to unleash destruction on everything below. But the Guardian was not alone. Maria stood in the center of the chaos, clutching the crystal that had unlocked the Guardian's true potential. The moment the crystal had reacted, A surge of power had flooded the temple, sending shockwaves through the forest. The trees bent under the force of the energy as the Guardian's presence fully manifested. It was no longer just a figure in stone. It was a living, breathing entity, its energy resonating through the very air itself. The inheritors, who had emerged from the shadows, were now on the move, their eerie forms flashing in and out of sight. They had underestimated the Guardian's power, but they were far from defeated. Maria could feel their presence, like a dark cloud, closing in on her. They were relentless, and they had no intention of allowing the Guardian to reclaim its full power. But Maria wasn't alone. The moment the crystal had activated, the Guardian had made its presence known. It called out to her, its voice not through sound but through thought, filling her mind with ancient wisdom. "You are the key to unlocking my strength, Maria. Together, we can drive them back." Her heart raced as she held the crystal aloft, focusing on the Guardian's energy. She could feel it pulsing beneath her fingertips, a raw, unyielding power that was waiting to be unleashed. The ground beneath her feet cracked open, revealing ancient runes glowing with an otherworldly light. The enemy ships began to descend, their weapons firing powerful beams toward the temple. Maria closed her eyes and concentrated, channeling all of the Guardian's energy through the crystal. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about surviving. She had to keep the inheritors from gaining control. Earth's fate rested in her hands, and she wasn't going to fail. Alex and Kaz were already en route to the Amazon. The news from Maria had been grave, and the satellite feed showed the alien fleet closing in fast. The Guardian had awakened, but it wasn't enough. The enemy was prepared to tear through Earth's defenses, and no one knew how long the Guardian could hold them off. They had to reach Maria before it was too late. The helicopter sped through the thick jungle, the rotor blades slicing through the humid air. Kaz leaned forward in his seat, eyes fixed on the monitors in front of him. He was a man of few words, but the tension in the air was undeniable. The fight was real now. Humanity had never faced anything like this. The Guardian was their last hope, and they had to get to it. Alex's mind raced. He had never been a soldier, but this was different. This wasn't a scientific problem anymore. It was a fight for survival. And if they didn't act fast, Earth could be lost. "Hold on," Alex said, his voice tight with urgency. "We're almost there." Kaz nodded, gripping the edge of his seat. "We need to get to Maria before those damned ships get any closer." Back in the heart of the Amazon, Maria was losing her grip on control. The crystal pulsed violently in her hands as the inheritors closed in. She could feel their presence, their intentions dark and cold. They were powerful, ancient beings, and they had no intention of letting the Guardian stand in their way. From behind her, one of the inheritors materialized out of the shadows, moving with unnatural speed. Its eyes burned with a fiery red glow as it reached for the crystal. Maria spun around just in time, barely dodging the creature's grasp. "No!" Maria cried out, her voice a mix of desperation and determination. She couldn't let them take the crystal. She couldn't let them win. With all of her strength, she thrust the crystal into the air once more. The ground shook beneath her feet, and the sky above seemed to crack open. The Guardian's energy surged forward, a bright, blinding light that pushed back the inheritors and sent them stumbling back in fear. For a brief moment, the forces of darkness seemed to hesitate, but Maria knew it wouldn't last. One of the inheritors, the leader perhaps, stood its ground. It looked directly at her, its voice cold and hollow. "You cannot stop us. The Guardian's power will not save you." Maria gritted her teeth, her fingers tightening around the crystal. She had no choice. If the Guardian fell now, humanity would be doomed. She had to push forward. She had to believe that the Guardian's power could still turn the tide. Alex and Kaz arrived at the edge of the jungle. The helicopter skidded to a halt, and the two men leaped out, weapons in hand. The sounds of the battle echoed through the air, and the distant glow of energy beams lit up the sky. "We're too late," Kaz muttered, eyes scanning the horizon. Alex's eyes locked on the distant temple, where he could see the bright flashes of energy. The battle was already underway. Maria was inside, and she needed them. They moved quickly, pushing through the dense jungle, their path lit only by the eerie glow of the battle raging ahead. As they reached the clearing near the temple, Alex could see Maria standing at the center of the chaos, holding the crystal high. The inheritors were closing in on her, their movements fast and fluid, like predators circling their prey. "Maria!" Alex shouted, rushing forward. She turned, her eyes wide with relief. "Alex, Kaz, you're here. We need to activate the crystal. The Guardian's power is almost at its full strength, but we can't stop them alone." Kaz moved swiftly to her side, scanning the perimeter for threats. "We have no time. Let's finish this." Maria nodded, and with Alex and Kaz by her side, she took a deep breath, focusing once more on the crystal. The Guardian's power surged around them, flowing from the crystal like a wave of energy. The air around them hummed with raw power. The inheritors regrouped, their eyes glowing with dark energy. They moved in unison, faster than anything Alex had ever seen. It was clear that they were not just alien invaders. They were something more ancient, something that had been waiting for this moment, waiting for Earth's protector to awaken. As the inheritors surged forward, the ground beneath them began to crack. The Guardian was reaching its full potential, and its power surged through the crystal. A massive pulse of light erupted, pushing the enemy back and sending shockwaves through the jungle. The inheritors screamed, but their voices were drowned out by the raw power of the Guardian. The first alien ship above them shook violently, and then, with a blinding flash, it was torn apart by the explosion of energy. The Guardian's full might had been unleashed. But the battle was far from over. More ships continued to descend, their weapons charging for the final strike. And as Alex, Kaz, and Maria stood side by side, they realized the truth. This wasn't just a battle for Earth. It was a fight for humanity's very survival. The Guardian had risen, but the real fight had just begun. The air was thick with a sense of impending doom. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but already the stakes couldn't be higher. Alien ships continued to descend from the sky, their enormous silhouettes blocking out the stars. The skies, once bright and clear, were now filled with flashes of destructive energy and the ominous hum of incoming weapons. The Guardian had awakened. Its power had surged through the crystal, tearing through the jungle and pushing back the inheritors, but they were far from defeated. The true test of Earth's survival was just beginning. Alex, Kaz, and Maria stood at the center of the chaos, their eyes fixed on the massive energy barrier surrounding the temple. It was like a force field, pulsing with power from the Guardian itself. But it wouldn't hold forever. They had no idea how long they could keep the invaders at bay before the shield faltered. Maria gripped the crystal tightly, her fingers trembling. The energy flowing through her was overwhelming, but she couldn't stop now. Not when the fate of the world rested on what she was holding. The Guardian's energy surged once more, reacting to her every thought, every command. It was almost as if the Guardian and she were one, linked in a way that transcended time and space. But even with all the power at her disposal, Maria knew they couldn't hold off the inheritors forever. "Alex, we can't keep this up," Maria said, her voice strained. "The Guardian is powerful, but it's still too weak. We need to find the source of the enemy's strength and destroy it. If we don't, we'll be fighting an endless battle." Alex's gaze hardened. He was ready for this. They didn't have any more time to waste. The enemy was relentless, and every minute that passed brought them closer to their goal, Earth's total destruction. They had to strike at the heart of the invasion, and they had to do it now. Kaz moved to Maria's side, his expression grim. "We don't have to do it alone. There are more of us out there. We can rally our forces. We'll stop them together." Alex turned to face Kaz. "We don't have time for that. The enemy's ships are too close. We need to act now, before the Guardian's energy burns out. If we don't take the fight to them, they'll break through, and it'll all be over. The inheritors were relentless. They had retreated only for a moment, but they were far from defeated. Now their leader, the one who had spoken to Maria, stood at the head of a dark, swirling cloud of energy. It was clear now that the inheritors were no mere alien invaders. They were ancient beings, bound to the stars, with a power unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. And their goal was clear: Earth, the Guardian, the crystal, everything. The inheritor leader looked down at the temple, its cold eyes narrowing. You cannot defeat us. We have waited for millennia for this moment. We will reclaim what was once ours. Maria's heart raced. We won't let you. The Guardian is stronger than you think. The inheritor's lips curled into a twisted smile. We shall see. With a flick of its hand, the leader sent a bolt of dark energy hurtling toward the Guardian's energy barrier. The force of it was so powerful that the ground shook beneath them. The energy barrier rippled, faltering under the attack, but it held. For now. We need to push them back, Alex said, gritting his teeth. He knew the inheritors were far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Their power was vast, and their determination was unwavering. If we don't act now, it's over. Maria nodded, her face set with resolve. I'll do it. I'll push the Guardian's power to its limits. But you have to distract them. Buy me time. Kaz didn't hesitate. Let's do this. With one last look at each other, the team split up. Maria stood at the heart of the temple, focusing all of her energy on the crystal. She could feel the Guardian's presence in every fiber of her being. The ancient protector was with her, and together, they were going to strike back. Alex and Kaz, meanwhile, moved quickly to the perimeter, ready to face whatever the inheritors threw at them. They knew that they couldn't stop the enemy completely, but if they could just slow them down long enough for Maria to activate the Guardian's full power, they might have a chance. The inheritors moved in quickly, their forms flickering between shadow and light. Their dark energy crackled in the air, and Alex could see the destructive force building in their hands. They were preparing for a final assault. We need to hold them off, Kaz shouted, taking cover behind a nearby rock. He opened fire, unleashing a barrage of bullets toward the inheritors, but the dark beings seemed to move effortlessly, dodging and weaving through the attacks. Maria was still standing, eyes closed, focusing on the crystal. The Guardian's energy flowed through her, now stronger than ever. She could feel the pulse of the crystal becoming more intense, the power within it growing to an unimaginable height. She was beginning to lose control. Please, she whispered, barely audible. Please work. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from the crystal, enveloping the entire temple. The force of the explosion sent a shockwave across the jungle, knocking Alex and Kaz to the ground. The inheritors, too, were thrown back by the sheer power of it. Maria opened her eyes, her heart pounding in her chest. The crystal had been activated, and the Guardian's full power surged through her and into the atmosphere. The sky itself seemed to crack open, the energy pouring into the world like a flood. The inheritor leader screamed in fury, its body flickering, as if it were on the verge of disintegration. No, this cannot be. But it was too late. The Guardian's power had reached its peak, and it was unlike anything the inheritors had ever faced. The entire jungle seemed to pulse with life, the air alive with energy. The very earth itself seemed to rise up, as if in defense of its protector. The Guardian was no longer a passive force. It was alive, and it was fighting back. The inheritors staggered, trying to regroup. Their dark energy was no match for the Guardian's light. The power of the crystal and the Guardian's ancient energy began to wash over the inheritors, searing them with a heat that could not be quenched. One by one, the inheritors began to disintegrate, their bodies consumed by the Guardian's energy. Their screams echoed through the jungle, but no one could hear them. Alex and Kaz stood, watching in awe as the Guardians' power swept through the battlefield, pushing the invaders back. The sky above was illuminated with blinding light, and for the first time in days, there was hope. But the battle was far from over. More ships were descending, and the leader of the Inheritors, though gravely wounded, was not done yet. It was clear that the fight for Earth was far from finished. The Guardian had risen, but it was only the beginning. As the battle raged on, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The Guardian had awakened, but the war had only just begun. Alex, Kaz, and Maria had awakened something ancient, and with it, a new hope for Earth. But would it be enough? The enemy was relentless, and as the sky above them darkened with the arrival of more alien ships, one thing was certain: Earth's fight for survival had only just begun.